What's the biggest impact on oral communication today? Hi, I'm Joel Sweeney. I personally believe it's texting. You can't, you don't have to look very far to see somebody with a smartphone with their head down, either texting, reading a text, following a news feed, checking out Facebook, any number of things that we do with our smartphones these days, and not engaged in any kind of meaningful oral communication. They're communicating when they're texting with one another, when we're texting with one another, we're communicating. But I would suggest that we're not communicating as effectively as we could if we were doing that communication orally. Now, that doesn't mean we eliminate texting 100%. I think there's lots of great situations where texting serves us very, very well. We just want a short answer. We don't want to belay the point or something of that nature. Maybe it's something that's only said in a few words, so we don't have to worry too much about the interpretation and the message being misunderstood. But if we're trying to communicate something that's of a serious nature, and I say serious in that not that it's detrimental. It's that it's important. And so if it is important, then I think texting can have us come up short in terms of what we intended to communicate. The other part is that years ago, we just naturally relied on oral communication because we didn't have any other choice. So we would pick up the phone, we would go into the other room, but nowadays, whether it's with family, whether it's with friends, with coworkers, with others in our community, we're seeing more and more reliance on texting. And I think that takes away from the art of oral communication. And I want to focus on the oral communication component of it, and not from my normal perspective where I would be talking about public speaking and presentation skills. I want to bring it down to the smaller numbers. If we're talking amongst our friends or amongst our co-workers in a very comfortable setting, it's not unusual for our personalities to bubble to the surface very, very quickly. However, at the same time, we might be a little bit lax in our focus on what we're saying and how it's being received. So if we're going to communicate something to anybody, whether it's a friend, a colleague, a loved one, one-on-one, one on a couple, one on a few even, if we're comfortable in those situations, we need to make sure that the message that we're sending out is the message that we're receiving. We would tend to pay a little bit more attention to that if it was a little bit more formal. If we were in a job interview, we certainly would do that. Pay more attention to whether or not we're communicating the way we intended. But having said that, I believe that if we do it in our informal settings, then it becomes a lot easier to do it into the formal settings. So it just becomes second nature for us. So if we're into a job interview, for example, and we want to show that we're passionate about the job, then we can do that, particularly if we put emphasis on the fact that we are passionate. We can put emphasis on the fact that we're sincere. And if we're doing that as kind of a routine in all our communication, if we take all our communication seriously, then I think we condition ourselves to step up to that almost automatically. So it becomes second nature for us. But if we're going to rely on texting to do our communication, then we're going to come up short on both, I think, the communication itself that we send out through texting, but also we're going to come up short on how polished and effective our oral communication is. That's your tip for today. Now go out and make your voice heard.